Yes, the Courtney Gripling from the early 2000s animated show As Told by Ginger is gay. Now, these rumors have been floating around for many years, so I'm going to confirm the rumors, starting with season 1 until the end of the series in season 3. So, to set the scene for those who haven't seen it or don't remember, As Told by Ginger followed Ginger Foutley and her group of friends throughout their time at Lucky Junior High in the late 90s. Ginger's best friends are Macy, Darren, and Dodie. Dodie definitely being debatable. And then there's Miranda and Courtney, who are the stereotypical meme popular girls. We also see Ginger's mom, Lois, who is one of the best moms in an animated series, in my opinion, and Carl Foutley, who is best friends with Dodie's brother, Hoodsie, also known as Robert Jones. So I'm trying to focus mostly on Courtney's interactions, but to truly appreciate them, I will need to give context to the episodes that we cover. Now, I feel like I have to make a disclaimer that these are two-dimensional animated characters, so if you're going to be upset by speculating about them being gay or annoyed by queer people relating to characters, take some deep breaths. It's going to be all right. Courtney Gripling herself is unbothered with the allegations.
But if you ask me, I think Ginger Foutley is pretty cute.
So to give a brief synopsis of Courtney before diving into the episodes, she's the most popular girl at Lucky Junior High, and she's also the richest. So she and her brother Blake Gripling live in a mansion, and they have a personal servant named Winston who waits on them hand and foot every day. We do see her mother a few times, but we never see her father since he's always doing rich man shit. And due in part to their class and family dynamic differences, Courtney is fascinated with Ginger Foutley. So compared to the other relationships, Courtney's obsession with Ginger in the show is really particular, which we will see. Now, there was speculation that Courtney was actually supposed to come out in the final season and confess her feelings to Ginger, but this is a legend, a myth. So the creator of As Told by Ginger, Emily Kapnick, said on a podcast, which I'll have to put the link in here because I don't remember the name of it. But anyways, she said that Courtney was at least not written as explicitly gay. She said that girls of that age tend to be obsessed with one another, and so that's what was being depicted. That being said, this was the early 2000s, so there was just no shot that a gay character would be openly LGBTQ in a kids show. So intentional or not, a lot of queer people relate to Courtney's friendship with Ginger. Another thing to take into account, which I know this is going a little bit deeper maybe than what's needed, but the idea of compulsory heterosexuality, which describes the experience of lesbians and queer women not actually seeing it as a feasible option to be with women, since societal pressures and everything and having no sapphic representation is something that really plays a part in queer people being able to recognize they're queer, especially as they're growing up. So just something to take into consideration as we go through this. So we will start with episode 1, and it all begins with Courtney observing Ginger and her friends outside of Lucky Junior High as they wait to get picked up and taken home. And she hears them talking about pedicures and riding frontsies in the car, and she's fascinated with this because she's rich, I guess, and doesn't relate to them. So back at Courtney's mansion, we see her doing pedicures on Miranda and vice versa, since, Courtney is fascinated with Ginger.
Careful with the cuticles, Miranda. I'm tender-footed.
Remind me why we didn't go to the salon like we usually do.
Friends paint their friends' toenails, Miranda. It's as simple as frontsies.
And they're also planning on Courtney's surprise birthday party, which she is throwing for herself. So Courtney starts listing off all of the popular girls in her inner circle that she wants at her surprise party. But then she throws a curveball and says that she also wants Ginger Foutley there. And Miranda's aghast at this, and she has no idea why Miranda would invite someone like Ginger to their party.
Ginger Foutley, that's right.
But she's a total wannabe.
Still, there's something about her.
There's nothing about her, Courtney. Her presence will force the party's chemistry into a downward spiral.
Let's move on.
And Courtney goes on to say, there's just something about her. in response to Miranda being annoyed with her. And when Miranda doesn't agree to this, we see that Courtney looks annoyed and she says that she just wants to move on. So I think Courtney is definitely fascinated with how Ginger lives, since it's different from her own life because of the class differences and everything. But she doesn't fixate on Dodie or Macy, who are also within the same popularity ranking. She doesn't obsess with them in the same way. So in this scene, it looks like she's grappling with the confusing feelings, since she doesn't even really know why she wants someone like Ginger at her party. The next day in the hallway, Ginger runs straight into Courtney, scattering her books everywhere, and Courtney looks absolutely delighted to see her. And as she helps her pick up her books, she declares that they're really good friends.
Hello, Ginger. I'm glad we ran into each other. You are? Of course I am. We're really good friends. We are?
That pass is for making number 1 or 2, not idle chit-chat. Now get back to Courtney! I'm so sorry. I didn't realize it was you.
We even see that Ginger is confused by this declaration, and Courtney reassures her that they really are friends, and she's excited for her to come to the party. And so when I initially saw this, I really thought Courtney was setting Ginger up as some cruel mean girl prank, because Courtney is the stereotypical popular girl, and it's weird that she's actively going against her status to do this and being so adamant on them needing to be friends, when she herself doesn't even know why she wants Ginger around. So, it just doesn't appear organic. She wants to ensure that she is around Ginger, and she will use her status as being popular to get Ginger to be around her. So anyways, Ginger has now been formally invited to Courtney's party, which is a huge deal for Ginger, and she's obviously nervous about this. And it doesn't help that Miranda is in her ear also, absolutely manipulating her, as she will tend to do throughout the seasons. So she tells Ginger that Courtney already has nearly everything, being the rich snob that she is, and so Ginger had better bring a cool gift or else. And Ginger sinks down to the dirty bathroom floor lamenting this. She's like, I finally get invited to this party and I only have lame gifts. And then Dodie affirms that Ginger basically has lame gifts because she is an asshole, as we will continue to see.
Oh, Macy, Ginger's right. This is big time. Some lame-o gift like hand-painted barrettes isn't going to help her now. Even though I really like those ones you made me.
I'm dead meat.
Anyways, so later, Miranda tells Ginger that she can actually help her by telling her what Courtney wants for her birthday. And Courtney just so happens to want an enter sign that's located conveniently in front of the bank. And if she gets this, Courtney will be super happy. So Ginger hesitates, obviously, because she's like, this is theft, right? And Miranda is like, well, you better make a choice by tonight, threatening her for whatever reason. So Ginger has to decide by tonight if she's going to steal this sign. So she agonizes over this because it's either never getting invited to a cool kids party again or going to prison. And so this decision understandably carries a lot of weight. And so Ginger calls to tell Miranda that she's decided to steal the sign. And Miranda begins laughing manically once she hangs up the phone, which indicates to the viewer that an evil plan is underway. Miranda's dad also just so happens to be a cop, so while she's at Courtney's party, she calls him to report a theft. Ginger is promptly caught red-handed, so she's trying to steal the sign, and Miranda's dad just pulls up, and she gets arrested and thrown in the back of his car. And as she's in the cop car driving in front of Courtney's mansion, she leans out the window to announce to everyone that she's gotten arrested for robbing a bank.
Sorry I couldn't make it to your party, Courtney. I got arrested for robbing a bank. And look, I didn't even get frunsies.
Ahem! Ginger Foutley got arrested for robbing a bank? What a total and complete surprise!
And Courtney, instead of looking upset by this or thinking Ginger has ruined her party, she looks thrilled by it, And she probably is going to be giggling later and kicking her feet and just admiring Ginger from what it looks like. And Miranda is also flabbergasted.
Will somebody please explain to me how even when Ginger Foutley loses, she wins?
She wants to explain, how even when Ginger Foutley loses, she ultimately wins because Courtney likes her that much, and Miranda doesn't get it. So Courtney makes a face of a person that can only be described as absolutely enamored and dreamy-eyed for Ginger. Like, I'm going to insert that picture here and look and try and tell me that she is not infatuated with Ginger. That is the face of someone that is in love. So the links that Ginger is going to not be excluded from future parties, even saying she is risking going to prison for this theft, truly shows the difference in popularity status between Courtney and Ginger's crew. Now, earlier in the episode 2, we see a popular jock give Darren a big old classic wedgie, and I cannot stress this enough that they are dorks. Like, Ginger Foutley and her crew are major losers, and Miranda knows she can easily manipulate them because of their status. So it says a lot that Courtney is going out of her way, potentially risking her status and friendship with Miranda, who has been her friend for longer, to become friends with Ginger. And that brings us to episode 2. So in episode 2, Ginger and her crew are having to do community service hours at the local nursing home after stealing the bank sign. And this is where Ginger's brother Carl becomes infatuated with an old woman / baddie named Maud. And there's more to come on this later, but all you need to know for now is that Maud is here for a good time, not a long time, and she's ultimately an agent of chaos, which Carl Foutley loves. So Courtney calls up Ginger and basically invites herself over to Ginger's house, saying, since we're getting to be such good friends, don't you think it's time I come visit your house? So she's just strong-arming Ginger again into being her friend and getting close to her, like what we saw in the previous episode. Like, she is infatuated with her. She's probably enamored that she thinks Ginger, stole a bank sign or robbed a bank for her. So anyways, she's giddy about Ginger. She invites herself over to Ginger's house. And of course, Ginger is excited by this because Courtney is popular. And so Ginger asks Lois if Courtney can come over to the dinner. And she's relieved when Lois says yes, in spite of Courtney having been mean to Ginger in the past. Now, Carl also has invited his lady friend, Maud, as he refers to her as, over to dinner also because he says they're getting serious. And Lois doesn't know who he's talking about yet. She just assumes he's it's another kid his age. So we know this dinner that Courtney will be attending is there's going to be a lot of antics. So when Ginger discovers this, she begins to freak out, and Lois could not care less.
Courtney Gripling is coming to our house for dinner tonight. How, I repeat, how could you possibly let Carl invite one of his grimy little playmates? This is Courtney Gripling we're talking about.
Oh, give me a break, Ginger. She ain't the Queen of England.
So Courtney arrives in her over-the-top attire and is just in awe by the way Ginger lives. So she's going around and she's taking pictures of her closet as if it's all just a zoo exhibit. And I think she's definitely fascinated with the class difference, but I also think she's more open to the experience because she's developing a crush for Ginger. And so she also meets Maud when she's there, and she thinks that Maud is just Ginger's weird grandma. So when watching these scenes, I keep thinking that Courtney is still playing a cruel prank on Ginger because she's taking pictures of the room and everything. Ginger had some pony figures on her shelf or whatever, and Courtney is saying how cute they are, even after Miranda earlier in the episode was poking fun at Ginger for probably being a horse girl. But no, Courtney is genuinely interested, which we'll see as the show goes on. And so as they all sit down for dinner, Maud continues being disgusting at the table, talking about her rash and itching her ass, and then literally reaching for the food after. And Courtney still thinks this is Ginger's grandma, and so she just laughs. And she calls her revolting, but we can see that she's clearly having a good time, despite all of this gross things going on in front of her. And then Maud, she croaks. She croaks at the table.
Oh, fool!
And so Lois will spend the next few months thinking that she potentially killed the old woman with something that she cooked. But Maud's ghost will end up returning to clear this up at a later date, so stay tuned for that. So episode 2 ends with Ginger lamenting the next day at school about how horrible the dinner was. She's embarrassed by it, but we see that Courtney is gushing about how amazing it was to Miranda.
It was spectacular! The mother was just like I pictured her. I touched a real live vacuum.
In episode 3, the backdrop for this episode is a junior high ski trip. It also consists of Dodie harassing Ginger about going on the said ski trip while Ginger doesn't know how to ski, so she just keeps dodging the question. But Dodie will not shut the hell up about it. And so while that's happening, while Dodie is badgering Ginger, Miranda is also scheming, as she does, and she wants to make a bet with Courtney to manipulate their classmates for fun. So she says that she can get the foreign exchange student, Jean-Pierre, to kiss someone on the ski lift. And Courtney offers up the someone as Ginger. So Miranda is disgusted by this, and she says, and I quote, "He wouldn't touch that frizz bag with a 10-foot ski pole." So Miranda makes it very clear that she does not like Ginger. She thinks she's a major loser, and she doesn't get what Courtney sees in her. So Courtney doesn't agree, obviously, with this assessment of Ginger, and she pretty much tells Miranda to back off by saying, "Some people find Ginger's charm absolutely contagious."
Oh, really? Well, I wouldn't underestimate Miss Ginger if I were you, Miranda. Some people find her charm positively contagious.
Like, Courtney, that's you that finds her charming. That's a self-report. The some people that she's referring to is probably herself. So anyways, she tells Miranda that, again, Ginger is actually charming, so she doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. So during lunch, Courtney walks up to Ginger's table, and unprompted, she calls both Dodie and Macy by the wrong names, and then she addresses Ginger.
Courtney Gripling.
Hi, Courtney.
Ginger. Pody. Stacy.
She's Pody. I'm Stacy.
Whatever. Ginger, you are going on the ski trip this weekend, aren't you?
Now, Courtney inquires about the ski trip because she needs Ginger to go on this trip and kiss the foreign exchange student, Jean, so that she can prove Miranda's assessment of Ginger's attractiveness wrong. In my opinion, that's why she does that. So she lets it slip to Ginger that Jean-Pierre is interested in her. Now, Courtney is also interested in Ginger's experiences, and she goes on to say that something tells her that Ginger is actually ready for a more advanced slope. So Ginger does agree to actually go on the trip eventually. So the next day on the trip, Ginger gets on the bus in Lois's old, oversized, and smelly jacket, because Lois is a single mom and they have to reuse clothes, obviously. And so Ginger is wearing that, and the popular girls start making fun of her outfit. And Miranda tells Courtney that she's got her work cut out for her, and Courtney is visibly pissed with Miranda downgrading Ginger yet again. So yes, I think Courtney wants to win the bet, but this is the third time that she's gone directly against what Miranda thinks and says about Ginger. So Courtney then tells Miranda to move for Ginger and get up, and when she doesn't listen, she yells at Miranda.
Would you mind scooting back a seat? Ginger and I really want to sit together.
Excuse me.
That's okay, Courtney. I should probably just...
Move it, now!
So this goes beyond just the bet. She's pissed at Miranda for not liking Ginger, in my opinion. Now, Courtney also wants absolutely nothing to do with Dodie, basically telling her to buzz off on the school trip in a really great scene.
Hi, we're busy right now. Leave a message and we'll get back to you.
But I...
Beep! You were saying?
And she's also really curious about Ginger's experience with boys. And yes, she's wanting to be controlling of Ginger to win, but I do think it's just interesting how nosy she is about Ginger. She's a little too curious and possessive about her experiences and all of that. Now, Courtney goes on to give Ginger tips on how to go to first base. And another way that all of this can be perceived is that for it to be more acceptable for Courtney to be hanging out with Ginger, Ginger's social status needs to be elevated, which can be done through her being around popular rich kids and rich boys. And so if she can prove that she's cool to Miranda, maybe Miranda will actually back off and see that Ginger is, cool. And since Courtney only wants to be seen around other popular kids and everything, it would make sense that she might want Ginger to be more popular, so it's more acceptable for them to be around each other. So off the bus, Ginger is telling Stacy and Pody about what Courtney told her on the bus, and Macy shouts out, "Courtney wants you to go to first base."
Courtney wants you to go to first base?
Which is really funny out of context, the way it sounds. And so Ginger told them about Courtney saying she needs to be more advanced to get the boy and all of that. Now, while all the girls are waiting for the ski lift, Courtney says to Jean-Pierre, "If you ask me, I think Ginger's pretty cute." It's like, yeah, of course you do, Courtney, because you find her cute. So once they're on the ski lift, Courtney is basically encouraging Ginger, and she's shouting out, like, "You've got what it takes." And Miranda is shouting out, "Remember, Jean, you can have anyone." Like, essentially, why do you want Ginger? And so, I have to take a breath. I ask the question again. Why does Courtney have to prove so bad that Ginger has what it takes to score the cool, popular, good-looking kids? So Ginger ends up not kissing him because he is a creep, and she falls off the ski lift while leaning away from him. Not knowing how to stop as she's flying down the mountain, she hits Darren head on in a collision, shattering his leg on impact. And that brings us to episode 4. So Courtney, being the absolute stalker she is for Ginger, is listening in on Ginger's conversation with Dodie and Macy at the lunch table about having a sleepover. And Courtney is really curious about that since she doesn't have sleepovers. Being rich and all, apparently, I guess they don't have sleepovers. So later that evening, Courtney, in true stalker fashion, she just shows up unannounced at Ginger's house to personally invite her to her slumber party.
It's kind of hot in there.
I'm having a slumber party this Saturday night, and I want you to attend.
Where's Carl? I need a word.
Doghouse round back.
So, can you come to my soiree?
Wow, I'd love to, Courtney, but I have to check with my mom first.
Oh, I'm sure she'll be thrilled, but you double check.
She then grabs Ginger by the arm, asking her to come with her. And again, she is literally just manhandling Ginger into being close to her. And as we'll see in other episodes, she comes over to her house, like, unprompted a lot. And it's funny to see. Lois does end up saying yes, and so Ginger will be attending. And before the slumber party, Dodie quizzes Ginger on her knowledge of the popular girls through trivia. So they're doing that to memorize facts and nicknames and everything about them. So I repeat, they are nerds, dorks. So Ginger arrives at the party, and Courtney is showing off her giant room, and Ginger asks where everyone is going to sleep. And because, usually at sleepovers, everyone sleeps in the same room so you can spend time together. And Miranda, she's like, this is a different, more independent kind of sleepover.
It's just at the slumber parties I've been to, everyone sleeps in the same room.
This is a different kind of slumber party, Ginger. It's much more independent.
No, Miranda. We have to follow Ginger's lead on this one. She's the expert.
So Courtney counters that, though, and she's like, actually, no, Ginger is the expert, so Ginger's word is gospel, and we're going to listen to her. The popular friends arrive then, and Courtney introduces Ginger to them like she's her little pet. And Ginger starts listing out all of the nicknames from her trivia with Dodie, which just weirds everyone out. And Courtney also seems visibly anxious introducing her to the group. And the girls end up saying they have no idea who she is. And Ginger has to explain that she sat behind one of them in math all year. So they play Truth or Dare later, and Ginger chooses Truth. And Courtney waits absolutely no time to pounce on that, and she asks her to expose her deepest, darkest secret in the whole world.
Okay, my deepest, darkest secret is I've had this monster crush on Ian Richardson since the 3rd grade.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I just would have lied.
And like, I'm sure she wants to know everything about Ginger, since that's what one does when they have a crush on someone. And so after peer pressure, Ginger does end up spilling the beans about a massive crush that she has on Ian Richardson. Later on, once everyone is asleep, Miranda and Mipsy end up putting Ginger's hand in water to try and make her piss herself, because that's what you do at sleepovers. Now, Carl's friend Hoodsy is also in the mansion, and I didn't mention this subplot because I don't care, or didn't care, but Blake Gripling stole an eyeball that Carl has been keeping, and Carl sends out Hoodsy to go get the eyeball back. So Hoodsy's there, and he ends up drinking the water that Ginger's hand was in, and he passes out and he pees on Courtney Gripling's bedroom carpet. And so in the morning, all the mean girls are making fun of him, and they're chanting out, bedwetter, bedwetter, and Ginger stands up to them, and she says to give him a break. He just drank too much, and Courtney is pissed, and I think that's completely warranted when someone pisses on your floor and then uses your stuffed animal to sop up their own piss. I think it's warranted to be a little bit peeved. So Ginger doesn't back down, and she asks Courtney, truth or dare? And Courtney obviously doesn't want to do this. She's like, now's not the time, I'm pissed, Ginger. And then finally Courtney's like, truth. And Ginger asks Courtney if she's ever wet the bed herself, and Courtney, of course, adamantly denies this, calling it disgusting.
Of course not.
It's disgusting.
You know, if you're not going to tell the truth, you might just want to say dare.
Oh my gosh.
Come on, Hoodsy.
So Ginger calls her a liar in front of everyone, telling her that she should have just chosen a dare, and leaves the party. And Courtney is fuming after that. She's obviously embarrassed in front of her popular friends, and Miranda says that Ginger is history. She appears to be toast at this point. And yet, as we'll see, Courtney continues to actually become more obsessive for Ginger. In episode 5, Dodie gets chosen to be the school presenter for morning school announcements, and this is one of the first signs to come about how horrible Dodie truly is.
Well, Pody, I hope you'll be an improvement on Brett.
Oh, pinch me. Did Courtney Gripling just practically congratulate me?
So the power goes immediately to her head, and she starts spilling everyone's drama out over the school intercom. And then Dodie gets word that there has been a lice outbreak. And as fate would have it, Ginger's mom is a nurse, and she's going to have to be the one giving the lice exams because the other nurse is gone. And so Dodie decides that it would be really smart and great to just announce to the whole school that Ginger's mom will be doing this. Obviously, Ginger is pissed at this because it's middle school and kids will make fun of you for breathing wrong. And Dodie does not care at all. She's mad at Ginger for being mad at her. And she will continue to just be a shitty friend, as we will continue to see again and again. So I just had to bring this up because I am a certified Dodie hater, and I think that context needs to be given. Anyways, so Courtney starts washing her hair religiously, like 4 times a day after the lice announcement, not realizing that lice actually prefer clean hair. And so sure enough, on the day of the lice examination, Lois discovers the little pesky critters running through Courtney's hair and scalp. And Courtney, of course, begs Lois not to tell anyone. And of course, Lois is like, no, I won't do that. I'm a nurse. And unfortunately, Lois actually does end up spilling the beans to Ginger. Because Lois is like, you're always hanging out with that Courtney girl, so I'm surprised you don't have lice. And Ginger is like, ooh. And so Ginger being nice, she's obviously not going to say anything. But Dodie, that's a different story. And so the next day, as Dodie is sitting at her intercom table, getting, ready to give the news, she's just like kind of like messing around, and she pulls out a drawer in the desk, and she just happens to find medical records in the front office for some reason, and she is foaming at the mouth to read out the names of the kids that have lice. And of course, Courtney Gripling is on the list, and so she is on the brink of death as Dodie is reading out these names in alphabetical order, waiting to get to, the letter G. And so she's begging Ginger to please put an end to this. Stop it. Don't let Dodie get to the G. And so Ginger, she gets up and she bolts from the classroom, making a mad dash to the office to stop Dodie. And she is successful. Last minute, she yanks the cord from the intercom, and Dodie is effectively neutralized. So after school, Courtney shows up again at Ginger's house to gush and say thank you by hugging her.
Actually, I just came by to tell you, well, today and all, what you did. Wow, I don't know where that came from.
And we see that she's kind of taken aback after she hugs her, and she's saying she doesn't even know where that came from. And it's like, yeah, Courtney, it's called a big fat crush, but you're in the 20th century and you're confused and you don't know what's going on. And so there's a blog called As Told by Ginger Reviewed online, and she's reviewed every episode, which is awesome. And she also jokes about how it looks like Courtney was actually like gonna kiss Ginger. And that's the end of episode 5, the lice outbreak. Episode 6. I don't really have anything to say about this episode, so I'm only going to talk about the beginning. So Courtney leans over Ginger during health. They're in a health science class, and they're watching those like puberty videos about hormones and everything. And Courtney leans over Ginger and she goes, "Ooh, movies can be romantic even in the context of a classroom."
Ooh, movies can be very romantic, even in the context of a classroom.
And like, yes, I took that out of context slightly, because after that she goes on to suggest Ginger should go sit next to Ian because Ian is her crush. But it's like, why did she have to say it like that? Why did they make her say it like that? And Courtney also knows that Miranda has a crush on Ian, yet she still wants Ginger to be popular and get the cool guy. From my opinion, how I'm reading it, okay? That's what I think, and I'm sticking to it. So that's all of episode 6. Episode 8. Now, in episode 8, it begins with a fire drill, and Courtney tells Miranda to essentially step off yet again as she pulls Ginger elsewhere to talk alone. And so we can see Courtney and Ginger giggling together in the courtyard. They're having a good time as the fire drill thing is going on. And Miranda and Dodie start getting annoyed because that's their best friends, obviously, as you do in middle school. You get annoyed with that. And Courtney, we see her then volunteer Ginger that they're going to do the fire hose demonstration together because for some reason they have to do a fire hose demonstration in this fire drill. I've never been in that situation, but anyways, she holds up Ginger's hand in what is a very iconic picture. So Miranda is seeing all of this and she leaps on the opportunity to manipulate little smooth-brained Dodie. And she tells her that it's clear that Ginger may not actually be her BFF after all.
Well, Courtney certainly doesn't know about Frizzy Lizzie's, Ginger's deepest, darkest secret, does she? Well... Did I hear Frizzy Lizzie just now?
But Ginger would never tell anyone else about her red, hairy legs that her mom won't let her shave. Oh!
And Dodie takes it upon herself to say that there's actually no way Courtney knows about Ginger's Frizzy Lizzies, aka Ginger's hairy legs. And Miranda, of course, snatches that up to blackmail Ginger into staying away from Courtney because, well, the lesbian overtones are quite fierce in this show. Now, Courtney later approaches Ginger at lunch, and she's like, "Ginger, where have you been? We haven't talked in so long." And she's upset that Ginger won't talk to her because Miranda is in Ginger's ear going, "Don't you have a report on Harry Houdini to do?" And she keeps threatening her by making these hair references. So Ginger, of course, is like, I can't speak to you, Courtney. I have to go elsewhere and be away from you. And so Courtney becomes even more obsessive about missing Ginger, even more obsessive than what Dodie did. When Dodie had a fight in the previous episode with Ginger, she didn't give a shit about Ginger. Ginger had to reach out to Dodie to get an apology. So anyways, Courtney is upset. And later we see her go into the girls' bathroom, and she essentially tells everyone to clear out of the bathroom and fuck off, except for Ginger.
Yes, nice to see you all too. Now, would everyone please clear out, with the exception of Ginger?
She wants Ginger to stay in the bathroom, and she confronts her about the indifference that she's been showing towards their friendship. Now, Miranda is still in there, so Ginger just tells Courtney that she's been busy, and Courtney gets even more hurt from this, and she says she needs to reconsider their friendship.
Ginger, I can't help but notice your indifference towards me lately.
I've just been so busy. Homework, book reports.
Oh, well, if you're too busy, I understand. But I'm just being honest with you. Perhaps I need to rethink this budding friendship. Miranda?
And she does seem genuinely hurt by this. And like I said, again, even more genuinely upset than Dodie has ever been in a fight with Ginger. So now Ginger wants to put an end to the blackmail, obviously, but Lois won't let her shave her frizzy Lizzies. So that's a problem. And so Ginger goes to Carl, and Carl's like, well, she didn't say you can't shave your ankles. And so Carl shaves her ankles to stop the blackmail. And the next day, Ginger is in class, and she exposes her shaved ankles to Miranda. And that was like the equivalent of just throwing water on the wicked witch of the west. So anyways, Miranda is effectively, the threat is neutralized, and Courtney enters the class, and she sees Ginger, and she calls Ginger's high-rise cargo shorts with a pocket on the side
Khaki clam diggers with a side cargo pocket. How very smart. I approve.
Thanks, Courtney. I'm glad you're talking to me again.
Well, you did have 3 more days of cold shouldering coming, but that statute of limitations can be broken when a fashion compliment is in order.
So anyways, I simply do not buy that she thinks that it's truly fashionable, but it's Ginger, and she loves her, so of course she's going to think what she's wearing is awesome. So Ginger is utterly relieved by this, and Ginger, she didn't even apologize, and Courtney, like, she literally did nothing, and Courtney just forgave her. So just goes to show how much she is in love with Ginger. So now we're at episode 9. Episode 9 is kind of weird. The backdrop for it is that there's going to be a high school pool party. So essentially, Macy and Courtney are taking high school level French for some reason. Courtney apparently knows French because she's rich and goes to France. So anyways, they're taking high school level French at the high school. And Courtney, out of the complete kindness of her heart, just volunteered Macy's pool as a place for a party to the whole class to help Macy fit in. And she also wants Darren's older brother, Will, to be at this party. Now, in my opinion, part of this is because of the popularity status it would be giving Courtney to hang out and party with the high schoolers and the high school boys. Anyways, people also love pointing to women taking interest in guys and thinking that discredits them from being gay or bi, so we will not be doing that. Anyways, Macy got word that the mean high school girls were going to pull Courtney's top down at the party. She overhears them in the bathroom snickering and planning to do that. And so Ginger tells Courtney that she's going to be revealed. They're going to pull her bathing suit down. And Courtney just thinks that Ginger is jealous, and so she just ignores it. The high schoolers are sneaking up to Courtney to go undo her bathing suit, and Ginger and Macy, they jump into action and they throw a pool tube around Courtney right as the mean girls untie her bathing suit. And Courtney, thanks to Ginger and Macy, she is saved. And so she ends up thanking them for being her true friends, which is a really sweet interaction. Now, it's unfortunate for Dodie because that won't last at all, but for Ginger, Courtney will definitely keep trying to be her friend. Episode 10. I don't really have anything to say about this episode, but the girls wanted to imitate Courtney, and they have makeup on picture day, and Ginger looks like Chapel Rowan, and I just think it's kind of funny, so I'm going to put a picture in here. Episode 11. Now, Ginger gets paired with Ian in this episode for a science experiment, and Miranda is visibly annoyed because Miranda has a crush on him, of course, which we already know, but Courtney ignores this again, and she hears that Ginger is paired with Ian, and she's like, ooh, chemistry is my new favorite subject. I was like, why is she so interested with who Ginger is with, and seemingly at the expense of Miranda? It's happened multiple times. So anyways, now Ginger did say obviously in a previous episode that she had a crush on Ian, so I guess you could say Courtney is just excited for her out of true friendship. But again, it's at the expense of her supposed BFF Miranda, who she's been friends with for longer. But I digress. So Ian and Ginger get paired up, and then after class, Courtney compliments Ginger on how much Ian is into her, you know, him being a popular jock and all. And she talks about Ginger being advanced again. So she says she's never seen him be like so into one person before, and she wants to know what kind of magic Ginger worked on him. And she's trying to figure out why Ginger's charm is just, you know, positively contagious to others beside herself. That's how I view it. So anyways, as it would turn out, Ian is just a typical himbo jerk, and he's actually using her for an A on their science lab, which Darren overhears in the locker room, I believe. And Ginger is surprised because she didn't actually do anything to make Ian like her. So again, it's almost as if Courtney is just personally charmed by Ginger. So Miranda gets pissed off since she wants Ian, and she sarcastically, you know, tells Courtney, thanks, I don't think you were helpful enough. So before the science lab, Courtney actually takes off Ginger's glasses, and she gives her some cooler pink goggles that are supposed to make her look, you know, better or whatever.
There are goggles, and then there are these goggles. See? Gorgeous girl scientist.
Thanks, Courtney.
And then she winks at Ginger, okay? So, like, yes, she's proud of herself for helping Ginger be cooler, but she also seems proud of Ginger being charming and cute, and she can't help but fixate on it or notice it, even if she's not fully aware that she is the one that's charmed by Ginger. So once the lab begins, Courtney is watching every single move that Ginger is making as if it's like a nature documentary, and she ends up calling Miranda in class on their cell phones, and she is telling her about the observations that she's making.
Don't you find it interesting that Ginger stays Ginger even when she's talking to Ian, a guy she's crazy about?
What's so impressive about that?
Well, when you're around a guy you like, your voice gets all tight, and you kind of freeze, and you make up stuff about yourself. Face it, Miranda, you freak.
And she also tells Miranda that she's fascinated that Ginger stays herself even around the guys that she likes. And she points out that Miranda doesn't do this, essentially rubbing even more salt into Miranda's wound. And then she also says that she's, you know, fascinated by gingerisms.
I'm just fascinated by Ginger's, gingerisms. Oh, I like that word. Add gingerisms to my list of Courtneyisms.
Right. Gingerism.
So she's like giving little pet names to Ginger and her behaviors. And I was like, of course you are, Courtney, because you're obsessed and you have a massive girl crush on a gorgeous girl scientist. So anyways, Courtney continues watching as Ginger is about to confess to Ian that she thought Ian, you know, actually liked her and wasn't just trying to get a good grade. So Ginger is trying to say that to Ian, and right as she's about to be like, I thought you actually, Courtney comes in, she swoops in.
If you'd just been honest with me right from the start, I wouldn't be so mad. I mean, when we got teamed up, the way you reacted, I thought you really...
You thought I really what?
We're low on saline. Mind if we borrow?
Courtney, thanks. Go ahead. Take it.
And she keeps Ginger from being embarrassed by being like, ooh, can I take this like solution? I need it. And she winks at Ginger again. And so we see that she clearly isn't being a standard mean girl to Ginger. Like, she's working genuinely hard to befriend her, and she doesn't want to see her embarrassed or hurt. That's how I read it, and it will continue on throughout the show, and it's really fascinating to see. So in episode 12, Courtney and Miranda want Ginger to audition with them for a talent show. And Miranda is probably asking Ginger for nefarious reasons, but Courtney didn't pick up on it or doesn't care because she wants Ginger around her.
Why not ask Ginger Foutley to join our little spectacle? I'm sure she'd be delighted, since you two are such good friends and all.
Great idea! How uncharacteristically generous of you.
Oh, Ginger! A word with Courtney.
Hi, Courtney. Hi, Miranda.
Courtney has wonderful news. Courtney?
Thank you, Miranda. And congratulations, Ginger. You have been selected to appear with Miranda and me in our talent show extravaganza.
And Ginger, unfortunately, wastes absolutely no time telling them that she can't because she already promised her other friends. And Miranda leaps on this, and she's like, so we aren't your actual friends then? And Courtney becomes upset by this, and she says that she's having some type of incredibly unfamiliar emotion.
Are you saying that we're not your friends? Doesn't it sound like that's what Ginger's saying?
It most certainly does. And I'm experiencing an incredibly unfamiliar emotion right now, Ginger.
I didn't mean to hurt your...
Don't upset her more. It's called rejection, honey.
Well, I don't like it one bit. Miranda, what does someone do after they've been...
Rejected. Typically, they stop talking to the person that rejected them and storm angrily away.
Can do.
And it's like, could that be a lovesick feeling, Courtney? The feelings of your feelings not being reciprocated? Now, we've already seen her, been really upset earlier when she said she needed to reconsider her friendship with Ginger when Ginger was ignoring her, but she got over it in 5 seconds to keep being around Ginger. So anyways, Courtney later comes in the bathroom and she demeans Dodie, calling her Ginger's little friend. So clearly she's feeling jealous, and any friendship vibes from the pool party are completely dead, at least with Dodie it's gone. So Ginger has shown that she's interested, in a friendship with Courtney, but Courtney appears to be doing the most legwork. Even after feeling discarded a few times by Ginger, she continues on. So this is the episode where Macy gets to debut herself as the little seal girl at the talent show, and she wows the crowd by this. I can't really go into much more context for this video. I feel like it would be really, really long, but it's a funny episode. So Courtney also has a horrifying act with her literal clones on rollerblades.
It's Courtney! Who's the girl? We'll all agree! It's Courtney! It's Courtney!
So I guess Ginger was going to be a clone, but that probably would have thrown off the symmetry anyways, so probably worked out for the best. And that brings us to episode 13. Now in episode 13, Miranda makes the school statue into a witch with a bikini. I think it's a Halloween episode. And Ginger ends up saying, too bad Courtney isn't here. She'd love this. So, it's really frustrating because the producers set up this friendship/crush arc with Ginger and Courtney, and then they end up squandering it through season 3. And I probably can't get into the specifics, all of that, and I apologize for skipping ahead and saying that, but it's just a real shame because we'll see that they kind of squash it. Now this is a funny episode because Carl and Hoodsie end up conjuring up Maud's spirit, and she takes over Hoodsie's body, and then the ghost of Maud basically saves Ginger. I'm leaving out a ton about this episode, but basically Miranda plants evidence on Ginger to make it look like Ginger was the one that made the statue into the witch, and so she's in big trouble and gets thrown out of the school, and she can't attend the play that she was going to be in. So anyways, the ghost of Maud, she shows up and basically saves Ginger by giving Lois a picture that shows Miranda defiling the statue. I don't remember how she got it, to be honest, but anyways, Maud had it. So Maud goes on to also tell Lois that she can quit worrying about having killed Maud since it wasn't the mushroom caps that did it. And Lois is obviously relieved by this. Episode 14. So in episode 14, Ginger and the gals end up saving Courtney after Courtney gets trapped in a snowbank during a snowstorm.
This nut is mine!
Huh? Courtney?
Ginger! You came! I knew you would! I can't tell you how horrible this has all been.
So Courtney is absolutely over the moon to have her knight in shining armor, Ginger specifically, rescue her. But then she is incredibly annoying for the rest of the episode while stuck at Ginger's with no electricity there because of the blizzard. So I'm not really going to go into the rest of the episode. Not much happens. Okay, so that brings us to episode 15. Now, episode 15 is a little bit weird. Basically, there's a senator's son who is going to be potentially attending Lucky Junior High. And so the principal announces it to everyone, and they're like, hey, the senator's son is going to be coming to our school potentially. And Courtney is really excited by this because she basically says that he's rich and famous also, so they're perfect for each other. And I just think that's giving comp het, maybe. And so Courtney makes Ginger pretend to be Courtney and stand in for Courtney because Courtney has an allergic reaction to some like fish or something. So Ginger has to pretend to be her. Ginger ends up blowing it though, and is like, I can't continue pretending to be you, Courtney, and sacrifice my morals. And so she ends up blowing it. I don't remember exactly how, I'm sorry. But ultimately, Courtney is not really mad at her for doing that. And she just seems happy that she got Ginger to do it for her. Even though she probably won't get to be with the senator's son now because Ginger blew it. And anyway, she's still fairly happy with it. So interesting. And that brings us to episode 17. We're nearly to the finale. In this episode, Miranda steals Ian from Ginger before Ginger can ask him to the school dance that they're going to be having. And honestly, that's fair that Miranda did that because Ginger should not be asking Ian, who only saw her as the A ticket for his science project, to the dance. Like, why are you asking him to the dance? He used you. But anyways, Miranda doing this seems completely transactional, though, without any feeling. She just wants to get the guy. And then Courtney also says that she sent an invite to her guy, too, which is Darren. And not Darren, Darren's older brother, Will. And I think she mainly wants it for the popularity status because she says she wants to make a big entrance with the high school guy. In any case, like I said earlier, people love to forget that lesbian and straight people are not the only options. There's also like the mythical bisexual realm. So I digress. Okay, so I only bring that up because I don't want to make it seem like Courtney did not show interest to other guys in the show because she does at times, specifically Darren's older brother, Will. This season finale is going to take place at Camp Caprice, which is a summer camp. And at the beginning of the episode, we see Courtney talking to Miranda about going on a cruise to the Virgin Islands over the summer break. But she also heard Ginger talking about summer camp. And of course, she gets interested about that. So she specifically hears Ginger talking about how they'll be sewing labels into their clothes, and Courtney thinks that might mean like designer brands or something. So she's like, what brand are we talking about? And Ginger has to explain that they're talking about summer camp and labeling clothes, so there's no underwear swaps or anything like that. But this is like a foreign language to Courtney, so she's not computing it. Miranda jumps in and says that it sounds lame, and she says that they have other plans for summer, such as cruising the Virgin Islands, but she doesn't say it like that.
It's just so you don't get back someone else's underwear when the camp does the wash.
Gee, sounds like oodles of fun. Sorry, Courtney and I will be missing out. We'll be cruising the Virgins this summer. Beg pardon?
Now, Courtney is still interested about this Camp Caprice, and so she ends up telling Miranda that she's interested, and Miranda tells her to drop it since she's too high maintenance. Courtney's too high maintenance, so she wouldn't be able to handle it. And Courtney gets pissed by this and says, you don't know what I can handle, essentially. And she canceled the cruise that they were going to be going on.
Cancel my cruise and book me for a summer session at Camp Caprice.
Courtney, you know my father won't let me go on that cruise alone.
I'll show you, Miranda.
Even though she knows Miranda won't get to go on this cruise now. And like, yes, Courtney's doing it because she's annoyed with Miranda underestimating her, I guess. But let's also be real, based on all the evidence that we've been collecting, it would seem like she wants to be around Ginger also. We've seen her go outside of her comfort zone once to go to Ginger's house with Maud, being disgusting and everything, and she still had a really good time with that. And now she's going out of her comfort zone again, potentially, to go to summer camp. Now, everyone is worried about Courtney going to summer camp. Like, her butler, Winston, says he's worried for her because she needs tending to. And Courtney gets mad again, and she's like, I will be going to summer camp, and I will be drinking bug juice. So she has got to see Ginger over the summer, and she's making that very known to everyone in her life. Now, the day for camp arrives, and Ginger hugs Lois goodbye, and she loads onto the bus for Camp Caprice. And we see Courtney running up to catch the bus, and she's all dressed up with Winston dragging her giant trunk around behind him. She gets on the bus, and she plops right down next to Ginger. Now, something cool about Courtney, in my opinion, is her willingness to try new things. And I think she does it in part because she really does want genuine friendships. So even if it wasn't a romantic crush that she had on Ginger, her attempts at friendship with Ginger are really sweet, in my opinion. And I know a lot of people probably don't like Courtney, but obviously I'm making a whole video on her, so I am a Courtney fan, so it is what it is. Now, she's really obviously out of her element when she arrives at summer camp, and we have a scene where the girls all leave her behind, and she ends up calling out to them, like, do you girls want some company, as in me? And I feel so bad for her, honestly, because she's clearly trying, and she's just not managing. Now, Ginger wanders off to go feed her favorite horse at the camp, and she's talking to this kid named Sasha. He's a boy named Sasha. I don't mean that as an insult. The first time I heard it, though, I was like, Sasha? I haven't really heard that name much for a boy, but it is a boy name. So anyways, she's talking to Sasha, and Courtney runs up, excited to see Ginger, and she just addresses Sasha as boy. She's like, boy. And she'll do this later, too, in another episode. It's funny when it just sounds so, like, objectifying. She just calls them boy, and she does not care at all. She doesn't want to learn their names or anything like that because it's Ginger's world, and everyone else is just living in it. So back at the cabin, Courtney gets annoyed with Macy because Macy keeps calling her CG. But I bet she would love it if Ginger had a pet friendship name for her. And I'm just saying because she loved, talking about Gingerisms. So I assume she'd like to be called CG by Ginger, just not Macy. So some girls end up coming up to the cabin looking for Ginger. And Courtney is like, well, like, Ginger didn't introduce us, but, we're super close friends, because, again, she always has to say that they're close friends, even if they're not. Like, they are to Courtney, I guess, but not to Ginger. And so the girls are shocked by this, and Courtney goes on to tell them that Ginger has been to, like, all of her parties and everything. And so it's like, okay, Courtney, we get it. Just announce your undying love to everyone. And it does look like she did this also to try and make a connection with the girls, because she's been abandoned a bit by Ginger and them. And she's completely, out of her element, like her rich, entitled life. So she's trying to make friends, I guess, and that's her way of doing it. But in another scene, we see that the girls and Ginger are making friendship bracelets, and Courtney is watching it, and she goes all coy towards Ginger, and she asks Ginger who she's planning on giving it to.
Interesting use of color, Ginger. So, who's it for?
Like, she might be referring to a guy like Sasha, but I doubt it. I'd like to think with her doing all the winking that she was at Ginger, that she's definitely hoping the friendship bracelet was for her. So Ginger actually ends up not giving the friendship bracelet to Courtney. She gives the bracelet to Sasha's little snot-nosed sister instead, named Melody, I think. And Courtney marches over to confront Ginger for giving her the cold shoulder, but in my opinion, it's about the friendship bracelet is part of it. So anyways, she says that she thinks Ginger is lovesick. And I was like, yeah, Courtney, you're a little bit jealous, I think. And confused because she doesn't realize she has a crush on Ginger, and so she doesn't really know where those feelings are coming from. So Courtney ends up also dropping that, saying basically to Ginger that you probably miss your boyfriend, Ian. And she says that in front of Sasha's little sister, which seems like a jab, honestly, to keep Ginger from Sasha. Because Ginger is not dating Ian. Like, they literally are not dating. We have not seen that. So Courtney is just throwing that out there. So Courtney goes on to say that she's tried to overlook this bore of a place, and she's telling Ginger this, and then Ginger ends up saying, well, Courtney, you are a little like high maintenance, and that's probably why people don't want to be around you, essentially. And that makes Courtney really upset because, again, Miranda told her that earlier in the episode also. And so she ends up telling Ginger that she's changed, and the other girls notice it too. Those other girls that she's talking about is the ones from the cabin earlier, who she told Ginger, had a super rich, popular boyfriend named Ian. And honestly, I think she brings that up because I bet she'd love to be Ginger's rich, popular girlfriend to impress them. So that's all I'm saying on that. But anyways, she says she's overlooked this bore of a place for Ginger, basically, and gets mad at Ginger, and she walks away. And then later, we see her in the cabin, and she's just like, she's sobbing on her bed. Which again is kind of sad because she just has not been able to make friends at the camp. Courtney does end up apologizing at the end. She says that she's sorry for being a wet quilt this summer and that she's actually had fun. And again, I think it's just sweet. Like, I think Courtney had so much potential for a friendship arc and for like a crush arc if they had written it that way and followed it. And we'll get to season 3 and you'll see what I mean. It's a lot. That is the end of season 1. We've gathered quite a bit of evidence about Courtney potentially, developing this crush on Ginger, or this girl crush. We've seen her go against Miranda, who is her BFF, multiple times in order to be around Ginger, because Miranda doesn't like her. And we've also seen her go out of her comfort zone to be around Ginger at Ginger's house. She goes to Camp Caprice, where again she's like out of her element and all the girls aren't wanting to be friends with her, and we see her get jealous with Ginger again about Ginger ignoring her, and she just continues to pursue Ginger even when she's like slighted by her multiple times. So that's the end of season 1. We can go on to season 2, and we are fast approaching some of Courtney's gayest moments. So season 2, episode 1 starts with Darren getting his headset off, and so everyone thinks he's a total hottie now and not a major brace-faced dork. Miranda says she's going to score him as a boyfriend, and then Courtney says she'll score his older brother Will, so both her and Miranda will be related. And so anyways, they're jumping around for joy at this idea. From what we've seen, their crushes are just usually for popularity status, like when Courtney said her and the senator's son would be perfect because he's rich just like her. We also haven't seen her genuinely flustered around anyone except for Ginger. Miranda later on starts telling Courtney that she can't hang out with her because she needs to be around Darren instead, and Courtney is obviously hurt by this. Courtney doesn't mention Will, though, and she's not trying to get other guys either from what we've seen. So it's interesting that she shows more interest in Ginger and her Gingerisms and her girlfriends like Miranda throughout all of the seasons of this show over any male characters. So Ginger is also upset at Darren because he's icing her out and he's spending all of his time with Miranda. Darren does end up apologizing, though, because Ginger starts giving him the cold shoulder, and he also stands up to Miranda about her possessiveness. So when Ginger is giving Darren the cold shoulder, he tells Ginger that Ginger also left him a few times to be with Courtney instead, which is interesting. It's almost as if Courtney is also a love interest. Okay, that might be a reach, but it's my video and I don't care. I'm just saying that Courtney abandons Miranda to get closer to Ginger, which is similar to how Miranda abandons Courtney for Darren. And often when crushes start coming in the picture in junior high and high school and such, this happens and can cause tension between friends. So the episode ends with Darren and Ginger being on good terms again, Miranda breaking it off with Darren, even though he was a good boyfriend. And then her and Courtney skip out while holding hands into the sunset. Episode 2. So episode 2, the backdrop for this episode is that the students will have to watch those puberty coming of age type of videos for health science class, and Macy is completely freaking out and would rather die than have to watch it, which I actually still relate to at the age of 27 because I hate knowing that I have a body with bodily functions. So this is prime real estate for Miranda to capitalize on, and she starts terrorizing Macy. Courtney is also being rude about it though, and she comes over to Ginger while they're on the bus to call Macy a lightweight essentially, because her last name is Lightfoot. And then she implies that Ginger actually needs to finally ditch her other friends to get anywhere in life, which is kind of jealous and a little bit controlling if you ask me. We have seen her do this in season 1, where she kind of wants to control which guys Ginger is with and getting jealous when Ginger is showing indifference to her. And now she's doing it even further about Ginger's friends. Also at the end of season 1, we did see Courtney display some jealousy about Sasha when she lied and said that Ginger had her boyfriend Ian back at home. Literally just middle school behavior. So the day arrives to watch the health movie, and so they all sit down in the gym, and Dodie and Ginger tell Macy to grab their hands if she feels like she's going to faint. And then Ginger turns around, and we see Courtney get visibly so excited to see Ginger noticing her.
Now, Mace, if you feel faint, grab my hand.
So she waves like all giddy-like. And it literally just looks like being so over the moon when your crush notices you and gives you just a crumb of attention by casually glancing at you, whether they even did it intentionally or not. Macy does end up running out when the movie starts talking about womanhood arriving, and then we also see Courtney getting really nervous around this part, and then she does end up packing up her lunch on Miranda's shoes because they show a birth scene. And I have to ask, is this something that was genuinely shown in middle schools? Because I feel like everyone spoke about a scene like this when I was in middle school and I was nervous about it, but I don't think anything was ever shown. So I don't know if that's like a legend that just gets passed around, or maybe it did happen and I blacked it out. I don't know. I don't remember it though. Episode 3. So in episode 3, in the opening scene, Mipsy, one of Courtney's cronies, cuts in front of Ginger to go into the school auditorium. And once they're all in there, Mipsy sits down, she laughs, and she taunts Ginger about being a nice girl, saying that nice girls finish last.
Standing room only.
Looks like nice girls finish last.
And Courtney looks genuinely upset or concerned at this, like she almost always does when she sees Ginger being badmouthed by her crew or by Miranda. So the principal announces to everyone that they aren't allowed to hang out by the high schoolers' wall, and Miranda makes a joke that Ginger should actually go hang out by the wall so she'll get kicked out and then they won't have to see her anymore, and Courtney seems to counter this.
You should try spending some time there, Ginger. Then we wouldn't have to see you for a few days.
And break school rules? Oh, nonsense, Miranda. Ginger's a nice girl.
So Courtney is like, no, Ginger's a nice girl, nonsense, she won't do that. And it's like, of course she's going to say that because she definitely does not want Ginger gone. And this looks like she's maybe trying to be sarcastic since Mipsy used nice girl earlier as an insult. But she obviously wants Ginger to be her BFF based on all of the earlier episodes we've seen, so I had to actually believe that she is upset at the thought of Ginger leaving. And I also think she really does like Ginger for being genuine and a nice person, compared to Courtney's crew and Courtney's upbringing, so I think she actually does admire Ginger about that and is meaning it genuinely that she's a nice girl and she likes that. So Ginger didn't like that she was called a nice girl because she makes an educated guess that that means uncool, and she would be right. And so she does point out that her and her friends are still major dweebs at Lucky Junior High. So Ginger wants to hang out at the high school wall to prove that she's not just a nice girl. And later that day, Ginger is waiting at the dentist for a teeth cleaning, and she overhears the high school guys, including Jake, who is a popular, edgy one that she sees by the wall always, saying that they're going to have a party this weekend. And then the doctor comes out, and she also rubs it in even more that Ginger's a good girl, saying that she hardly needs the teeth cleaning because she's been like the clean mouth of the month. And so she's truly getting dogpiled on. So anyway, clearly Ginger is going to try and crash this party to look cool. So Ginger and her friends, they do crash the party later, and Ginger ends up losing her keys while she's there. So she goes to search for them under the party snack table, and she ends up running into none other than the grimy, greasy Jake, who is also looking for lost food or something. And so Ginger bails on kissing him, but they do get very close to kissing. So the next day at school, Jake calls Ginger over the high school wall to give the lost keys back. And Courtney and the popular girls see this, and they are in shock as they witness it. And after they see this, Ginger implies to Courtney that something happened with Jake under a table.
He must have found them under the snack table after our tete-a-tete.
Tete-a-tete? You were with him under the snack table?
For like 2 seconds. Case closed.
And Courtney is really angered by this, confronting Ginger and then going on to tell her that she's hiding something from them, and she seems really paranoid that Ginger may or may not have kissed Jake under the table. And then she looks absolutely crestfallen by the end of the interaction. So in season 1, we see Courtney being proud of Ginger for scoring the popular guys and going to a high school party. But now in season 2, she's jealous at Ginger for doing the same thing. So sure, maybe she feels like her popularity status is being threatened, but she more so seems hurt that Ginger did this without her. Or she also might be jealous that not only did Ginger do this without her, but she's also showing romantic interest in guys. And I'm sure Courtney probably isn't consciously aware that she's actually jealous of Ginger's potential boyfriend, and so her anger comes across as odd. Now, considering in earlier episodes she seemed fine with Ginger being a cool girl. We also haven't really ever seen Ginger reciprocate the friendship, so that's even more telling in my eyes that she may be jealous by Ginger's romantic interaction. After this, Courtney can't get over it, and she needs to know what happened between Ginger and Jake. So Miranda and her actually go up to Jake to ask him about Ginger, and he refers to Ginger as clean mouth because, again, she had that clean mouth of the month thing at the dentist. And Miranda looks conniving, so we know she's going to use that information for nefarious reasons. But Courtney, on the other hand, looks genuinely upset by this. And then she asks Miranda if it's really okay to trash Ginger's reputation by letting that info out. And of course, Miranda doesn't care at all, and she just tells Courtney to get out of her way. So I find Courtney's behavior throughout this episode just really interesting because she clearly is upset with Ginger for not only attending the party without her, but also for kissing Jake. And despite that, she still is concerned with Miranda using that information to hurt Ginger. So I really do think she's battling her conflicting platonic friendship versus romantic crush feelings towards Ginger. Cue the slut shaming as a result of Miranda letting this info out. Later at lunch, though, Courtney approaches Ginger and she angrily says that she's glad that the ugly rumors have been put to rest.
Well, Ginger, I'm glad those ugly rumors about you have finally been put to rest. Word is Jake has a girlfriend, and it's not you.
Surprise.
Because she's discovered that Jake actually has a girlfriend and it's not Ginger. And then she goes on to half-ass apologize because perhaps she was a little bit jealous and it was bad enough that Ginger crashed a party that she didn't.
And, my apologies for contributing to the mix-up. Perhaps I was a little jealous. I mean, it was bad enough you crashed a party. I didn't.
It was a school night, okay?
So, is she jealous over Jake? Because we haven't seen her interested in him. Or is she having some confusing feelings and she's jealous that Ginger pursued someone else? And she said that it was bad enough that Ginger went to the party without her, which would indicate that the jealousy is for other reasons besides just her attending the party. And that leaves the only other reason, as Ginger maybe having kissed Jake. Also, it wasn't like Ginger pursued Darren's older brother, Will. So Courtney doesn't even know Jake from what we've seen, making it telling that she's not jealous from feeling threatened by a boyfriend getting stolen from her. Clearly, this seemed more personal to Courtney, while Miranda just gets off on causing chaos and hurting Ginger. Then Courtney goes on to say that she didn't like being out of the limelight, so we think, oh, okay, so she just wants to be the popular one, that's why she's mad. But no, because she goes on to say that she felt like she didn't even know Ginger. showing again that she's jealous at Ginger for doing this and for going to the party without her and kissing a dude, probably. So Miranda picks up on that too, because she looks devastated for a moment once Courtney admits that it actually is kind of personal.
It was Trey annoying being pushed out of the limelight, if only for a minute. I was starting to feel like I didn't even know you.
That brings us to episode 4. So episode 4, I love this episode, and it does provide some insight into Courtney's psyche. So I will cover it. So Lois is on a nurse's strike, which is awesome to begin with, because Lois is a hardworking, union-loving, red-blooded American. And so since she's on this strike, Lois is going to clean houses for income. And Ginger is embarrassed about this, like most middle schoolers are about their parents' occupation. That, and I'm sure being around Courtney has probably skewed her perception of respectable jobs and work, since Courtney is rich and basically has servants. Ginger ends up agreeing to do child labor and clean houses part-time with Lois to make the money so that she can go on a school trip to New York. And Ginger is still conflicted about cleaning houses, but in a really sweet scene, we do see Lois say that she isn't embarrassed to clean houses, and her and Ginger end up actually bonding during their time working. So Miranda discovers that Ginger's mom is a cleaning lady through a flyer, and so she tells Courtney, and then the Griplings call Lois to request that she clean their house since their maid is gone. And Ginger, of course, asks Lois not to take the job because they're just doing it to make Ginger feel bad. But Lois puts her foot down again, and she says that she doesn't feel bad or embarrassed by her job. So when Lois arrives to the Griplings' mansion, Courtney does tell Miranda to not make Miss Foutley feel even more bad since they're already in a tough spot. But Courtney does end up being really condescending to Lois by pitying her. I don't think she's aware that it's condescending, though. And then in a true act of courage, we see that Ginger shows up to the mansion to help Lois clean the house. And Courtney sees Ginger bonding with her mom while they're there, and she also sees how genuine it appears as they have fun together, and she comments on how she doesn't have that relationship with her mother.
Hey, how about we go to New York sometime?
Like, you, me, and Carl?
I was thinking more like the two of us. I don't think the Big Apple's ready for the Big Carl. It'd be like a girls-only weekend in New York.
Sounds good to me.
How come Mama and I never have this kind of fun? We've had hard times too.
What hard times?
Well, like when she lost the platinum card in Jamaica.
Courtney ended up being an ass at the end of this episode because she points out a spot that Lois missed, but I bet in part she was just jealous of Ginger's relationship with Lois and the lack of warmth that she herself has in this giant sterile mansion, which led her to be petty. So in future episodes, her behavior around Ginger's mom will make sense, and other things that she does also. Episode 5. So in this episode, it starts off with Courtney fighting with Miranda because Miranda wants Ginger to be on her team because Ginger is good at volleyball, I guess. And Courtney screams at her saying, "But you hate Ginger," which is true. And then later on, Macy and Dodie point out that Ginger is being really calm about all of this since both the popular girls are fighting over her. And this episode is really annoying to me because Ginger says that she's not going to take sides. And it's like, Miranda hates you, which Courtney pointed out. And so why are you getting walked over like that by Miranda? And then later, Ginger even says she feels sorry for Miranda because she has no friends. And it's like, what? It's nice that Ginger is being empathetic, but she's been a doormat to Miranda and also to Dodie, which is annoying. So through the episode, Miranda and Courtney keep fighting over Ginger as if they're going through a bitter divorce, battling for custody, and Ginger doesn't pick sides at all, like I said. And I think this is telling that Courtney continues to pursue Ginger after this when we've seen that Ginger is not reciprocating the friendship. So not only is Courtney way more popular, she's continued going out of her way to be friends with someone who is not on her status level, even after she gets rejected and embarrassed by Ginger, etc. Many things. Episode 12, Love with a Transfer Student. Dodie is obsessing over a new transfer boy, and she wants to score the role in a school play that would allow for her to kiss him, but Ginger ends up getting the role instead of Dodie, and this causes Dodie to spiral and become incredibly insecure and rude, as she does. And I mainly bring this up because we literally never see Courtney obsessed like this over a guy throughout the whole show. But pretty much every other character has dated someone or they've been infatuated with someone, which would mean that Courtney's infatuation and crush is Ginger. That's my belief. Episode 13, Family Therapy. This episode was just really sad, to be honest. Macy's parents completely forgot her birthday when Macy assumed that they would be throwing her a big party. And it takes Ginger outright confronting them to actually remember Macy's birthday. And then her parents start really infantilizing her. And honestly, I can't blame Ginger for getting a little bit weirded out by that. And she brings it up to Macy. Also in this episode, Courtney tells Ginger that she's been made head of the guest committee for Mipsy's party, so she will be giving Ginger an invite. And now we've seen in previous episodes that clearly Mipsy does not like Ginger at all, yet Courtney assures her that she's going to get an invite. And so not only does Ginger go against Miranda, but she also goes against Mipsy and the whole crew, really. So Macy ends up having a little petting zoo party, and Courtney and Miranda arrive to the party, and surprisingly, Courtney really likes it. And the main reason I mentioned this episode is because Courtney goes on to call the party campy.
Thanks, Serena.
Miranda, this party is downright campy.
So the term camp has roots in queer communities, and because this video is probably already over 2 hours long, you're just going to have to take my word for it. It's a really specific term to use regardless of if anyone was aware of the historical context. And so I'm like, who the hell wrote that into Courtney's dialogue? And I tried looking to see if I could find this as a really common word for the 90s or early 2000s in fashion, which it probably was, but I'm just not aware of it and I can't find anything on it. But in any case, it has strong roots within queer communities, so take that as you will. Episode 14, New Girl in Town. So we start this episode right out of the gates with Dodie and Macy getting bullied. And we also see a new girl named Letitia who freaks the entire class out because she has a skull that she pulls out of her backpack and she doesn't talk to anyone. Courtney's gang immediately begins gossiping about her after seeing this, and Ginger does stand up to them, telling them Letitia probably doesn't talk because she can't get a word in with all of their babbling. And I really respect when Ginger has a backbone, and I wish that she would use it more against Miranda and also against Dodie. Ginger, though, being the empathetic kid that she is, she does ask Letitia to hang out after school, but then she sees that Letitia's dad drives a hearse as he pulls up to the school to pick them up, and she ends up completely bailing to the bathroom. She does reflect when she's in there, though, and she says she knows how it feels to be different from everyone, so she should have been more understanding. Miss Courtney, on the other hand, tells Ginger to not worry about it.
Ginger, you should not, I repeat, not feel bad about what happened. It was brave of you to make the initial offer of friendship, but really, a hearse? A Vec coffin? There's making an entrance, and then there's making an entrance.
And that was definitely not making an entrance.
It's like, of course, Courtney is relieved that Ginger didn't follow through with the friendship, and she tells Ginger to just not worry about it. And Ginger stands up again, though, and says she's going to Letitia's house. And knowing that Ginger's already had a tete-a-tete with Jake, Courtney looks mortified again. So at Letitia's mortuary home, she shows the gang around the place, pointing out all of the nice coffins that they have. And she also puts the rumors to rest and says that the skull was actually just fake. Her mom told her to bring it because it gets people to talk when you bring an object around. And so I guess her mom was okay with her getting bullied and ostracized from the entirety of the Lucky Junior High population. So Ginger suggests that Letitia should have a party at the mortuary so that people can actually get to know her and have fun. And then Ginger says that she's kind of tight with some of the in crowd, which literally just means Courtney. That's the only person that she has some in with the in crowd with. And so Letitia agrees to throw a party. Now, unfortunately, Courtney does turn Ginger's invite down, even as Ginger is practically begging her not to. And Courtney says that sometimes she has to conform.
It isn't a morgue, it's a mortuary/funeral home. And it's really nice.
I think you should know.
no one's going to this party.
But I told Letitia I kind of had an in with the in crowd. If no one goes, I'll look really,
Stupid, foolish, like a wannabe.
What I'm saying is, people will go if you do, Courtney. I mean, she's really excited because I promised her people would come.
I'm afraid my hands are tied, Ginger. You see, even though I'm the acknowledged leader of my social stratum, even I must occasionally conform to the will of the group, and since the group will not go, neither will I.
So maybe Courtney's a little bit jealous still over the Jake thing, because she hasn't had an issue in the past going against her crew for Ginger, and Courtney has sway over her fellow middle schoolers, but she still doesn't agree to do it. Later on, there's a really sweet scene after Ginger tells Letitia that she actually didn't have an in the in crowd, where Letitia says that that's okay because now they're all the in crowd, now as true friends. And I don't think she knows Dodie well enough yet to be saying that, but a turn of events happens though because Courtney shows up to Letitia's and she looks so excited to see Ginger, which she always looks happy to see Ginger, and that's the only reason that she would be here at a funeral home.
Courtney?
Hi, Ginger. The thing of it is, I got to thinking about what you said, and I really hate it when I do that.
Basically, you made her feel guilty, spineless, amoral.
Yes, Miranda, I think we all get the point. Anyway, you're taking a stand by going ahead with this party. Well, it made me want to take a stand, too.
Really?
Basically, Courtney says that she feels bad because Ginger showed again that she's a nice person. And Courtney says that she thought about what Ginger said, and even though she hates when she does that, it did change her perspective, which I think is really sweet, and it shows that she actively goes against all that she knows when she's around Ginger. She goes out of her comfort zone, and she also tries to go outside of her preconceived notions and social conditioning as a shallow, entitled girl to seek genuine connection instead. I forget how it happens, but basically all the cooler, older high school guys hear about the party from Carl Foutley, and so they show up to Letitia's. Courtney does greet Will, and she latches onto his arm quickly, which I still think is for popularity points, but in any case doesn't discredit bisexuality or some compet going on. And honestly, I don't think Courtney has ever sounded as excited or looked as excited when seeing others besides Ginger.
Hi, Courtney. Can't wait for chemistry class. Think we'll have lots of fun.
Gee, Dodie, take a breath. Hey, Ginger.
She just can't keep her cool as easily around her. Episode 15, Ginger's Solo. So Ginger is still pining over Sasha, the little twat from summer camp. And I don't know how much we touched on this, but he literally got mad at her for having a boyfriend, Ian, even though he had only known her for like a day. So he's a walking red flag, but I digress. So Ginger wants to join the band because they'll be going on a school trip to Sasha's school. Now my argument is this. Why is Ginger's insistence on getting to go on a band trip just to see Sasha different than Courtney canceling her cruise to the Virgin Islands just to experience summer camp with Ginger? No, she doesn't outright say or acknowledge it's because she's crushing on Ginger, but it's 2000 and absolutely no one is openly LGBTQ plus around her, so how would she be able to recognize a platonic friendship from an actual romantic crush? We've seen that Ginger doesn't even reciprocate the friendship, like when she didn't side with her Courtney during the argument with Miranda, which is literally a fight over Ginger, and yet she still persists, even going to the funeral home when the in-crowd wasn't going. So Ginger, she ends up getting in the band since their triangle player was out, and when she arrives at the school, she meets Sasha again.
Okay, so see, first of all, since you and I didn't make up until the last day of camp, I never got the chance to explain why I was such a jerk all summer. Right before I left for Camp Caprice, my girlfriend Clover dumped me for a soc. You know the type. Rich, popular, perfect teeth.
Mm-hmm.
And when I heard that obnoxious Courtney girl talking about your rich, popular boyfriend, Ian, I went ballistic. It was nothing personal.
Oh, water under the bridge. All part of a relationship, you know?
But the only problem is he has a popular blonde girlfriend. And Ginger, she's obviously a wreck over this, and so she scurries off to the bathroom to weep. And there's truly so many comparisons that I can make to see the season 1 finale. So Courtney is given the cold shoulder at Camp Caprice by Ginger, and she sobs over it. Ginger realizes Sasha doesn't reciprocate her feelings, and she cries over it. Ginger laments that she's hours away from home now, crying in a bathroom. Both of them have sacrificed their regular comfort levels to be around someone they like, or God forbid, even have a crush on. Also, Ginger carries around a locket with Sasha in it, while, spoiler, Courtney also literally does something very, very similar to this in future episodes. Episode 16, Mommy Nearest. If you're into character studies, this is the episode for you. So in this episode, Courtney's mom's plastic surgery goes awry with infection, and so she's got to stay at the hospital.
Oh, Mama, I hope you've learned your lesson. There's just no trusting a medical facility called Same Day Nip and Tuck,
where Lois works. And we see Lois ask Ginger if she wants to run errands with her after her nursing job. And since Ginger is getting older, she says she doesn't really want to hang out with Lois as much anymore, basically, or she says she doesn't want to go. So while Miss Gripling is in the hospital, Courtney, she starts to bond with Lois. And we've seen in the past how Courtney has wished that her and her own mom were as close as the way that Ginger is to Lois, basically. And it would make sense that Courtney might latch on to Lois. Courtney's also thankful for Ginger sticking by her side through this, since Ginger goes to the hospital with her. And Ginger, being a nice friend, asks Lois if Courtney can stay with them since Courtney's lonely and upset. Ginger starts to get jealous, though, because Courtney literally starts calling Lois Mom, and she's being really helpful. She's running errands with Lois, which Ginger didn't do, and she's cooking dinner and cleaning and doing all of that. And the main thing I really like about Courtney is her willingness to try new things, which I've said before, and go outside of her norm, especially to spend time with Ginger and now with Ginger's family. Ginger also quickly becomes tired of how close Courtney is with Lois and that she's basically hogging the attention. And Courtney's mom does end up getting released from the hospital, but she's going to go to like a spa recovery center or something. And so Courtney is hoping to stay longer with Ginger. Unfortunately, Ginger really shows her immaturity here because she doesn't bring up her feelings to Lois, and she just tells Courtney off instead, which honestly made me really sad to see because Courtney is just trying to have genuine connections, and when she tries to, now she's getting rejected harshly by Ginger.
Just asked your mother, and she said it would be okay if I stayed on until Mama gets back. If it's okay with you, that is. And I'm sure it is.
Well, what if it isn't?
Ginger, are you saying no?
Yes?
I'm confused. Is it yes or no?
It's yes. I'm saying no.
But, Ginger...
I said no. Ugh.
So Courtney comes over to Ginger's house later to gather her things, and she's being a bit passive-aggressive as she does this. She's basically telling Ginger that she had to remind her own mom that she has kids. And through this interaction, it's clear that Ginger starts to realize why Courtney acts the way that she does. So the episode ends with Ginger telling Courtney that she'll probably want to talk about this someday, but that never gets brought up again.
Two people shouldn't speak at all when they're fighting.
Hey, Courtney, you know, someday I'm gonna want to talk to you about all this, just not right now.
Even though I don't understand, I'll say I do. Just to keep the lines of communication open.
Thanks. You didn't really have to beg your mom to stay, did you?
Well, I may have exaggerated a little.
So I probably will never get over this, and that the writers drag Courtney through the fucking mud throughout the next season when they had set up such a perfect character arc. Ginger was like, well, literally, I want to talk about this someday, just not today. But they never bring it up again. Their friendship never develops much more. So sorry, spoiler. There's still a lot of gay moments, but that's just the truth of episode 17, and then she was gone. So Ginger writes a really depressive poem about a girl wanting to leave their earthly possessions behind to fly away. And Ginger's teacher, she gets really concerned by it. And like, honestly, as a former teacher, I get it. So after reading it, Miss Orski, she refers Ginger to the school psychologist. Now, Ginger is obviously upset by this, though, because to her, it's just creative writing and fiction, and she felt like it was a really moving piece, and I agree with that, because it was really well written. Ginger reads it to her friends, though, and they also were concerned with it, and they don't really believe that she's not actually depressed, because it is kind of a little bit weird to be talking about a girl leaving all her earthly possessions behind to fly away, you know, so they are a little concerned. Courtney overhears this though, and she takes pity to Ginger, and even Miranda says that she would have gone easier on her if she just said that she was clinically depressed. So it looks like no one believes her, which is frustrating, but at least Dodie does try to finally be a good friend, and she asks that if Ginger, ever actually wants to leave or disappear, she would hope that Ginger would tell Dodie and Macy. So Courtney arrives the next day in complete goth emo attire, literally crying out for attention. And obviously this is kind of annoying to see. That said, it does align with what we saw in the last episode, which is that Courtney is lacking warm relationships. And then she was discarded even more with Ginger casting her out after finally having a genuine connection with Lois. And so I think her attention-seeking behaviors make sense even if they look annoying. And so maybe this is also her way of trying to connect with Ginger on some level to garner relatability with her. And even if that's not the case, I do feel bad for Courtney on some level because she's lacking true friendships and she's really wanting to have real connections. And that brings us to season 2, the finale, episode 20. So Ginger's English teacher, Miss Sorsky, she's out sick, and so Ginger's class gets an authoritarian old woman for a substitute, and she makes them all face the wall throughout the class, and she gives out essays for just minor infractions like chatting or breathing. So later that week after class, all of the classmates are gathered around outside, and they're led by Miranda, and they decide to actually TP the sub's house and then also egg her. And Ginger speaks up about this, and she says it's a little bit much to not only TP the old woman's house, but then also throw eggs at her. And of course, Courtney looks downright dreamy-eyed when Ginger is speaking out up against Miranda. The night comes though, and Ginger basically takes a bullet for the substitute. She dives in front of her right as the classmates throw eggs. And Ginger is then surprised though because the old lady, she does not care at all, and she's not grateful that Ginger saved her. So now Ginger goes on a warpath. The next day in class, she pulls out her seat from facing the wall and she drags it into the middle of the room, facing the front, and she doesn't respond to the old substitute telling her to move it back. And so then the substitute gives her an essay because of this, and Ginger's like, "Go ahead, I actually have a lot to say."
Whoa! Come to think of it, you better make it 30,000 words.
Smart thinking, Ginger. You can turn it into a novella. Daddy knows tons of publishers in New York.
Quiet!
So since Ginger stood up to her and wouldn't back down, the old hag demands that the entire class also write an essay. And then following Ginger's lead, like always, Courtney is the next one to stand up to her.
Well, that's just fine. I have a lot to say, too.
So she ends up also dragging her desk away from the wall and facing it the front with Ginger, and then the rest of the class does so also. So the season ends with Courtney being heavily influenced by Ginger, and we've seen her follow her lead at least twice now, going against the in crowd and now also standing up to authority for Ginger. We've also seen her become more obsessive with Ginger. She appeared jealous of her going to the high school party without her and for potentially kissing a guy. And then we see her also get really close to Lois, which made her closer to Ginger, of course. All right, so we have made it to season 3, which is the final season of the show. The next 2 episodes are, dare I say it, the gayest for Courtney. She simply cannot beat the gay allegations in these next few episodes. So to set the scene, Ginger has applied for a fellowship with an elite school, and she ends up getting this fellowship, so she'll be attending that school for a semester. So at the beginning of episode 1, we see Courtney telling Miranda that her earmuffs are out of fashion, implying that they're ugly, and so Miranda gets annoyed, she rips them off, and she throws them in the trash can. And then literally about 2 seconds later, we see Ginger coming down the hallway with earmuffs on. Did I say ear muffins? I don't think so. But anyways, Miranda had earmuffs on and they were ugly.
It's just that, well, no one wears them anymore.
Oh, fine. Ugh.
And then Ginger had earmuffs on, and Courtney sees her and she goes doe-eyed and she starts complimenting her on her earmuffs.
Hey, Courtney.
Morning, Ginger. Oh, darling earmuffs.
Thanks.
What?
Nothing.
What?
Nothing.
Look, they just happened to work on her, okay?
Okay.
Yoo-hoo! Ginger, wait up!
So after this, Miranda then plots to unalive Ginger to keep her permanently out of the school. Not really, but basically she's in cahoots with the other popular mean girl, Mipsy, and they're planning and scheming to get Ginger to stay at the fellowship school instead. That way Miranda can have Courtney all to herself, I guess. So that's what they're doing throughout the episode. In our next scene, we see Courtney is being nosy and she intrudes on Ginger and Dodie having a tender moment. And this is where she learns that Ginger is going to be leaving. And from here on, we'll see Courtney spiral out of control, truly with heartbreak. So later on, we see Courtney recruiting Dodie and Macy to help ease her pain at the traumatic loss of Ginger by telling them to spend as much time around her as she can tolerate. So on the surface, it looks like she just wants attention, obviously, like always. But we know Ginger doesn't really fully reciprocate their friendship, and Courtney could have anyone's attention, which is why she is going to Dodie and Macy. But clearly, she only wants Ginger, and that will become more and more evident in the next few episodes. So she then goes on to say that it literally feels like when her favorite character, Jocelyn, was killed off of a love romantic soap opera that she watches.
As I was saying, I am positively miserable about the idea of Ginger going away. For some reason, it reminds me exactly of how I felt when my favorite character was killed off on the soap opera Loves of Our Lives.
Jocelyn.
The very same.
And yes, she may just think Jocelyn is a great character, but presumably Jocelyn is the main love interest in the show, and Dodie and Macy knew of this character also. So, could Ginger be the Jocelyn in all of this? One would think so when she is comparing her to Jocelyn and to her being killed off in the show. And yeah, so I'm gonna leave that there. So this brings us to episode 2. Episode 2 begins with Courtney throwing a big going away party for Ginger, and I really can't imagine Courtney putting in the effort for other characters like this. So we see Ginger enter the house, and Courtney calls out, "Ginger, my sweet." And I haven't heard her call anyone like a pet name like that, or a term of endearment, you know? So after this, after Ginger's arrived in the house and everything, Courtney then goes up to her to give Ginger a blow-up doll of herself. She also calls it a forget-me-not gift, which doesn't have to be romantic in nature, but it conjures up feelings and thoughts and an idea of, romance, a forget-me-not gift. So now, yes, Courtney is conceited, so that's the joke, right? That she's giving a gift of herself to Ginger. After all of this, everyone gives Ginger a cult-like send-off, chanting, "Goodbye, Ginger, goodbye, Ginger," and it's really, really bizarre.
Everyone, please raise your glasses and say it with me again. Goodbye, Ginger! Goodbye, Ginger! Goodbye, Ginger! Thanks, everyone.
Okay, so we also see at this going away party that Darren admits that he loves Ginger. And honestly, I'm not going to talk any more about this because I really did not like the relationship arc that writers gave him this season. It looked lazy to me and it genuinely was just really bad. So that's about as far as I'm going to go with that. So after the going away party, we see Ginger arrive at the new elite school, and she meets a girl who isn't just any girl. It's Mipsy's cousin, and we know that because of the purple lipstick that the girl has on. Ginger does not know, though, that this is Mipsy's cousin. Now, back at Lucky Junior High, Dodie and Macy have to speak to Courtney like she has dementia.
It's Ginger! It's Ginger! Courtney, that's not Ginger. That's Alan Binkle. Ginger is away for a little while, Courtney. You won't be seeing her today.
Oh!
And really, Courtney appears to be just completely lovesick, and there's really no other way that I can perceive it. Like, I care about my friends, but I don't want to bathe in their scent.
Group hug, girls! Group hug! Let me try to soak up every last bit of ginger that might still be on you.
Like, is it gay to Want to bathe yourself in your friend's signature scent when they aren't around? Spray it on your pillow as a little like sweet forget-me-not? It's gay. Okay, there's no other way to perceive that, I'm sorry. Now, meanwhile, Miranda is moving forward with her plan to get rid of Ginger. She has a picture of Courtney hugging Dodie and Macy, which she plans on sending to Ginger because this will make Ginger think nobody misses her and that her BFFs have already moved on. As this episode goes on, we continue to see Courtney just completely heartbroken with Ginger being gone. She tells Dodie and Macy that they simply are not Ginger and can't compare. So she's really losing it as this goes on. Now here's one of the gayest moments. So the next day we see Courtney Gripling wearing a shirt with Ginger Foutley's face plastered on it. And the shirt appears to be a baseball tee, no less. And I used to have a baseball tee exactly like this one, blue sleeves and all. And it said, like, I'm bi till I die. Because that's what you do when you're coming to terms with your gay proclivities. You participate in rainbow capitalism. So anyways, find the difference between these two photos. This is also where we see that Courtney is clearly a lipstick femme. So after all of this, after Courtney figures out the scheme to get rid of Ginger.
This is unbelievable! All this to get rid of Ginger? Oh, and look at this!
Your best friends have moved on, so why don't you? Oh my gosh! This is total propaganda! If I'm not using that word incorrectly. We have to get up there. We have to talk to Ginger. If she thinks we've turned on her, she might actually stay up there for good.
She actually calls for her personal helicopter to take them to Ginger's school, and she hops out of it military style, and then she also kicks down Ginger's door. I mean, we have never seen her act like this. Like, this seems out of character for her. So again, the heartbreak has really just taken a toll on Courtney. Ultimately, Ginger's happy to see them all, and they tell her about Miranda's plan to keep them apart. So the episode does end with Courtney running back to Miranda, since Mipsy's cousin tells her they only did this plan because they missed Courtney's attention, which is always on Ginger. In any case, though, this whole plan being put into action was from Courtney. So, ultimately she was the mastermind and the force behind all of this. And that brings us to episode 3. This episode is incredibly annoying. Basically, Dodie plots with Miranda and Mipsy to get Ginger and Darren to break up because she's annoyed that Ginger has a boyfriend now and the attention is away from Dodie. Her brain is literally so malleable. She crumbled just for an ounce of attention from Miranda and Mipsy. So that's what she's doing with them. So the plan is basically to have the guy that Ginger was kind of interested in at the elite school, to get him to call Ginger and leave a voicemail saying that he misses her because Dodie calls him and is going to impersonate Ginger. So Courtney overhears of this plan, hears of Dodie talking to Miranda about it.
You see, Macy, if we split them up, then things can get back to normal. I don't know. Everyone benefits in the long run, Lightfoot.
Now the plan is to get Patterson to dump Foutley and get back together with me.
Oh, Courtney!
And she also hears where they're going to be meeting later in the day to execute that plan and call the guy.
Meet in the south stairwell after lunch.
Everyone knows what to do.
So later on, Courtney goes to the spot and she actually sees Dodie commit the treason and everything.
That was great!
You sounded just like her.
Oh my gosh, those little witches. They're totally undoing her. I've got to warn Ginger.
And then Courtney, literally being Ginger's only true friend, she tells her the truth that they're conspiring to break Darren and her up.
Ginger, I'm afraid I'm your only true friend in the world. Cinnamon?
What?
Your best friends, Dodie and Macy, are in cahoots with Miranda and Mipsy. They're out to ruin your relationship with Darren Patterson.
You've gotta be kidding.
I wish I were.
Why would my best friends want to ruin something that makes me really happy?
Why do they make children's aspirin so very difficult for the small children to open?
Actually, Courtney, they do that so kids
My
won't.
point is this.
And Ginger, rightfully, she can't fully believe this because, like, what kind of terrible friend would actually do such a thing? So Courtney said she'll get everyone on a call later that night. That way she can prove to Ginger that she's, like, not lying and Dodie is betraying her.
I know what you girls are up to. I overheard you talking in the bathroom, and I want in.
Glad to hear you've come to your senses, Courtney.
So, what's the next part of the plan?
Hold on. Let me patch in Dumb and Dumber so we can get you up to speed.
Hello?
So the episode ends with what feels like a literal bomb drop. And so Ginger overheard all of that, and she tells Courtney, that she's heard enough, and she hangs up the phone on everyone. And we just have these really dramatic cutscenes of everyone realizing that Ginger knows, and these, like, black screen fade outs.
That was Ginger?
It was an ambush. Macy, that was Ginger. What have we done?
Then Ginger asked Darren if he'd ever do this to a friend, and he says no, which makes sense because why would you do that to your best friend? Courtney certainly wouldn't. She was the only true friend in this episode by telling Ginger about the plan. Okay, so that brings us to episode 5, which is called Easter Ham. This is one of the most annoying episodes. So the background for this episode is that Ginger is planning a birthday party for Darren, and there's also going to be a fight over a ham, which ends in massive heart failure. So it starts off with everyone just immediately being fine after the previous episode. There's no mention at all of Dodie trying to destroy Ginger and her actual reputation by making her look like a cheater. They address nothing. Now, in our opening scene, we see that Courtney is praising Ginger for organizing and throwing this party because she cannot go a whole day without gushing over her. But then we see Miranda tell Ginger that it had better be a great party or else her reputation is going to be ruined for high school and all. Courtney takes offense to this, though, on behalf of Ginger, and she tells Miranda that she needs to be nice, and she also says that she needs to say goodbye to Ginger.
Ginger, word is your birthday party for Darren this weekend is shaping up to be the event of the year.
Really?
You want this party to live up to all expectations.
Or else no one will ever come to another one of your parties again.
And who wants that kind of damage with high school just around the corner?
Not me, nope. Of course not. Now say bye, Ginger. See you at the party.
What she said.
We're working on it.
So Courtney consistently puts Miranda in her place for Ginger, and we've seen this time and time again from the very first season where she had to prove to Miranda that Ginger was cool, yelling at her to get up and move for Ginger when they were on the bus going to the ski trip. Now, later on, we see Lois and Joanne. Joanne is Dodie's mom, and she is another wretched character, but they are both fighting over a ham at the market. And Joanne appears to have a massive heart attack because of this and all of the stress of fighting with Lois over it. And so she ends up in the hospital. And she says that the heart attack came from the stress that Carl Foutley brings into her life. So she bans Dodie and Hoodsey from seeing the Foutleys anymore, which honestly should be for the best. Okay, so Dodie can't go to Ginger's party now. And it's like, who cares? Right? She was so disloyal. She was horrible to both Darren and Ginger in the last episode. But Dodie can't even have an ounce of self-reflection about her selfishness. She's
What? How could she even consider having that party without me?
How can you even consider having a party without me, Dodie? How could Ginger not consider having a party without you? And this is why I'm annoyed, because none of what Dodie did gets addressed, and Courtney is a better friend. Like, Courtney literally got her helicopter to fly in to save Ginger from thinking, that Courtney and her friends had moved on and didn't care about her. She didn't want Ginger feeling that way, so she went to those lengths to prove to Ginger that she cares about her. I've got to take a breath. Later on, Ginger calls Courtney, and Courtney, again, being the only reasonable person in the last 2 episodes, she reminds Ginger that Dodie was a backstabbing bitch not very long ago.
Dodie's mom and my mom had a fight at the Bag It Yourself bargain basement, and
Backstory. Cut to the chase.
since then, her mom decided that my family is sort of off limits to Dodie, which means she can't come to the party, and she was really looking forward to it. And now that she can't come, she wants me to call off the whole thing, and I don't know if I should.
Ginger, let me make this crystal clear. It would be a gigantic mistake to cancel a party that everyone is talking about.
I know. What if I just postpone? Darren will understand.
Will he? On his birthday, no less?
But it feels like a stab at Dodie.
Dodie's a big girl, and she stabbed you in the back once before, if my memory serves.
I guess.
Why should Ginger care about inviting her when she was backstabbing her, just like yesterday? Yet Ginger still feels bad about not inviting her, so they end up breaking Dodie out of her house so she can attend the party. Yay. This was kind of a detour, but I just really despise Dodie, so. Episode 7, No Turning Back. So in this episode, Ginger is going to be graduating from Lucky Junior High, and so she's going to have a high school orientation that she'll be attending, and she'll be touring the school. Also in this episode, we see Ginger's teacher, Miss Sorsky. She chooses her to be the student who's going to give the graduation speech. So Ginger is really freaking out with all of these big changes that are coming her way, and the pressure of writing a beautiful speech, all while Dodie's shrill voice is echoing through the halls of the high school before the orientation. Now, Ginger is going to be touring the school with Courtney, and as they are doing that, some of the high school students recognize Ginger because she received that fellowship last semester for the elite school. And after they recognize her, Courtney dives in immediately, and she tries to take credit for Ginger's accomplishment, basically saying that Ginger has really gone places with her help.
You Ginger Foutley?
Yeah.
Weren't you the recipient of last year's Avalanche Arts Fellowship?
Yeah.
Well done, Miss Foutley. I applied for that spot myself.
Really?
Yes. Since aligning with me, Ginger has really gone places. Hard to believe she was just that wilting little wallflower not long ago.
And I'm not sure what to make of this. It's obviously boosting her ego by asserting that she's the reason that Ginger is accomplished and popular, but I also believe that it's more so an attempt to keep Ginger close to her since she's probably nervous and overcompensating since they'll be at this whole new school and everything, and Ginger will, have new people to meet and possibly be friends with. So Courtney has truly been doing the most this season to get close to Ginger. So I think she's a little jealous and insecure about their friendship, which is kind of warranted because she literally exposed Dodie's betrayal of Ginger, and now Ginger, 2 seconds later, is immediately friends with Dodie again. Then there's a student who tells Ginger that she should try to be on the school council because she would vote for Ginger, and Courtney briskly turns her away from the offer, ushering her out of the door.
Ginger, this fall, run for student council because you are a shoo-in. I mean, I'll support you.
Wow, thanks.
Oh, and bamboo needs a lot of water, so you might want to consider a sprinkler system in a bed of river rock.
And from my viewpoint, I don't think Ginger threatens Courtney, but I do think she's being possessive to keep Ginger from moving on with a new high school crew. And I will admit, it's not the best look. In the next clip, we see a flamboyant band director. Is this offensive? Is this supposed to be offensive? Am I being offensive for asking if this is offensive? We also see Dodie foaming at the mouth to join the pep cheer squad. And wouldn't it be terrible if she betrayed Ginger yet again because of this? Wouldn't that be horrible? So this is also where we really start to see Courtney's character arc just go down the toilet. In one episode, she literally is in a toilet, but in this episode, she gets shoved into a locker by high school cheerleaders. So she's just talking to her mom on her cell phone out in the hallway of the school, and the girls, they come up to her and they knock her cell phone out of her hand. And of course, Courtney defends herself because she literally wasn't doing anything besides talking on her phone.
This is a no phone zone.
Oh, let me ring you right back, Mama.
Let me ring you right back, Mama.
How rude.
Newsflash, no one likes snotty little freshmen with expensive toys.
Look here! I wouldn't even talk to my dog that way. If I had a dog, which I don't.
The high school girls are offended by her doing this, and they're also mad that she's rich, so they lock her up. Now, while Courtney is missing and in the locker, a student goes back for his band instrument or whatever, and he hears her trapped in the locker. And she does it again like in the first season where she just calls out, "Boy,"
and remain desperately in need of a light, fragrance-free facial moisturizer that will replenish without causing any secondary breakouts. Oh. Boy? My name is Courtney Gripling. I will greatly improve your social standing and success rate with girls if you will forget what you just saw and never speak of this event to anyone.
Whoa, sure thing.
And it sounds so funny and impersonal because boys are interchangeable to her, which we've seen in like the Senator's Son episode where she gets Ginger to stand in for her while she's sick because she could not care less about that boy. She was just happy that Ginger did what she wanted. So back to the matter at hand. The boy, he opens the locker, finding Courtney inside, and she immediately tells him that she can improve his success rate with girls as long as he doesn't tell anyone he saw her here, which would damage her reputation. And my view is this. It's a little gay of her to coach a guy on how to get a girl. Like, she later on says that she'll just chat up the girls for him to help him, but it's like, that still shows that she really is not interested in the boys as much. She wants to chat up the girls. Later on, Courtney's interviewing with the news about her disappearance since she was missing and all. So the news people showed up, and she says that she was saved by an unnamed boy.
Within moments, a wrong turn sent me into a cold, damp storage room. The door locked behind me. I was nearly out of oxygen when unnamed boy found me. Unnamed boy is a hero.
A hero?
Because she just couldn't care less. And honestly, this is her track record with guys. The Senator's Son. Even when she wanted to score Darren's older brother, it was a half-assed attempt. And she mainly wanted it for popularity status since he was a high schooler. But you know who she actually pursues? Not because of their popularity status, but just because she's obsessed with her? Ginger. If you said Ginger, you're right. The episode ends with Ginger needing to plan for her graduation speech and being really nervous about being rushed into adulthood and everything. And Lois has a really sweet speech about how better things may be coming, and it was just a really sweet end to the episode. That brings us to episode 8, which is the second part of the previous episode. So basically in this episode, they're going to be graduating. And in our opening scene, we see that Ginger is still upset because she feels like high school is going to cause her to drift away from Darren, as well as Macy and Dodie, even though that would probably be for the best. Darren also will not stop calling Ginger babe throughout the episode, and it's just like nails on a chalkboard.
Did somebody say my name? Hey, babe.
Hey.
Ginger does end up coming to terms with these big changes after receiving pep talks from her dad and from Lois, and so the day of graduation arrives. Now, during graduation, Courtney runs into unnamed boy, whose name is Andrew, and she keeps calling him boy still, and he wants her to help him get Macy since they have a crush on each other from the last episode. And so Courtney assures him that she can chat up any girl that he wants.
Ow! My nose!
Oh, hello, boy. Long time no see. Oh, no offense intended.
About that favor?
As promised, I intend to chat you up to any girl in my grade. You just say who and when.
Her. And now?
Oh, consider it done.
And it's like, of course, she knows how to chat up the girls. So Ginger's speech is prepared and everything, and she gives it and releases butterflies. And again, Lois has a touching scene where she speaks to the butterfly, telling it to not let Ginger fly too far away from home. Episode 10, Fair to Cloudy. This whole episode takes place at a county fair, and Courtney honestly is the only character who isn't annoying the whole time. So to give background, Ginger basically has this best friends only tradition with Dodie and Macy where they go to this fair every year. For this year though, Ginger wants to bring Darren. Of course, Dodie gets really upset by this because she hates the attention not being on her for 2 seconds. In fairness, though, I can see how it would be a little bit annoying to have the boyfriend there in your best friend only tradition, but anyways, Dodie is mad at Ginger, and because of this, she invites Courtney to the fair to ruin Ginger's day, I guess.
What's the Gripling limo doing in our neighborhood? Hi, Courtney. How's it going?
Not too close, Dodie. Summer is almost over, and I haven't had that offbeat summer experience. What's Ginger up to these days?
Oh, just violating practically every BFF law there ever was.
Tension in the ranks. Oh, how unboring.
Courtney, I think I know just the offbeat summer experience for you.
I assume she thought Courtney would be really negative, and so she's trying to prove a point that it should just be Ginger, Dodie, and Macy and no one else. So the day of the fair arrives, and Courtney shows up to the Foutley's residence in her limo. Ginger is confused, though, since, of course, Dodie hasn't told her that she's invited Courtney. And so Courtney has to state that she's going to the fair, and she's going to the fair with Ginger.
Good morning, simple country folk.
Whoa, it's Heidi meets Ellie Mae meets a stylist.
Courtney, what are you doing here?
Going to the fair with you, of course.
Our county fair?
The very same, Macy.
She doesn't mention going with Dodie because Dodie is literally just a means to an end for her. While at the fair, we see that Courtney is actually having a great time. She's in the barn helping a lamb latch onto its mother to feed, and she's learning about looms. And this isn't too surprising because we know that she's open to new experiences for Ginger, and she made it clear at the beginning of the episode that she is going to this fair for Ginger. Now, as all of this is going on, Darren is both getting annoyed with Ginger and being annoying. He's upset that he hasn't been able to ride the rides yet with Ginger, and he's mad at how long everyone is taking doing these other activities that he doesn't want to do. So he pretty much goes off on Ginger in front of everyone in a really tense scene.
Look, Courtney's my friend, but that doesn't mean I want to share one of my favorite BFF traditions with her. That's for the three of us. Plus Darren.
Plus Courtney.
Ginger, I've waited long enough. I'm going to ride the Screaming Squid and get some pizza.
No, you can't.
Excuse me?
What I meant was...
She meant we don't do rides until it gets dark. And pizza is a definite out because we eat giant deep-fried pickles next.
Let me explain something. I don't care. I'm tired of being dragged all over this place doing your thing.
And it's like, for the love of God, chill out. Jesus fucking Christ. So after Ginger gets completely bitched at, she says that the day in tradition is ruined, implying that it's ruined because of Courtney.
Here we are! Where'd Darren go?
To the Midway. I'm going after him. Tradition's all messed up anyway.
Sure is.
And Courtney rightfully looks so hurt by this. And it's annoying because it's like, Courtney literally saved your relationship with Darren because she cares about you. And you just disrespect her. Like, you wouldn't even be here with Darren if it wasn't for her. It's just really annoying. So Ginger goes after Darren since he's being a massive baby about the whole thing. And Courtney catches up to Ginger and she asks her about the fight with Darren, prodding about why the fight is happening. But then she cuts her off when she's about to talk about Darren to run over to these shirts that are for sale.
Ginger, what was the fight about?
It wasn't really a fight. I guess Darren just got bored.
Bored? Here? I don't understand.
He never really wanted to come. I talked him into it. I just thought that Darren and I would...
Picture t-shirts! Oh, we have to do this!
Have the best day ever.
Ginger!
Because again, she absolutely does not care about the boys. She's for the girls. Ginger specifically. So she gets the girls to take photos so they can have them printed on those shirts. And it's really cute. Like, she was having a great time. Now, everyone does end up riding the rides and having a good time. And unfortunately for Courtney, she does end up puking and causing one of the rides to shut down. The episode ends with Ginger saying she realized that Darren is the best part of the day somehow, all because he remembered to buy an appliance that Lois requested Carl to buy at the beginning of the episode. It truly is upsetting to me that Ginger doesn't really consider Courtney a friend and would rather stay BFFs with Dodie, who has betrayed her trust multiple times to climb the social ladder, while Courtney has done the literal opposite for Ginger. Besides that all being annoying, it was fun seeing Courtney have a good time, not caring about the boys and Darren, and, just having a good time. Episode 16. So we're getting close to the end here. They make Courtney appear completely insufferable at the beginning of this episode, so she gets bullied and put into her place. Even though we've seen in the past her potential to change, I guess it was just fun for the writers to dunk on her the rest of this season. So she shushes some older girls in the bathroom and then is making fun of their appearance to her mom on the phone. So they flush her phone down the toilet and basically tell her to never use the bathroom again, threatening her, and they shove her in a trash can for good measure. So because of this, Courtney can't use the restroom again, so she flies in her own fancy, porta potty. And as if this wasn't enough bullying and humiliation, the locker, the trash can, and everything, Courtney gets pushed down a hill in the porta potty, and it's a long story. Basically, Carl, it doesn't matter, because all you need to know is that the writers trash Courtney's character and any growth that she had through the season in these last few episodes. Why am I suddenly supposed to love her getting absolutely humiliated after we've seen her be a better friend than Dodie? It just makes no sense, and it was so lazy in my opinion, because in the previous season, we see that Courtney bonds with Lois and Ginger's family because she has no caring relationships, and Ginger said that she would like to talk to her about it someday in the future, so you'd think the writers would set up a character arc and growth in this final season, but no, they completely flush it down the toilet in these last episodes. All of that ranting and foaming at the mouth aside, we have made it to the finale. So in the finale, we see Courtney's dad get arrested on the news for rich man antics, and Courtney basically loses everything, all of her money. And at one point, Courtney is sobbing in the school bathroom about having lost everything. And again, the writers make her look insufferable because she's asking Ginger if, Ginger knows what it's like to have nothing and if Ginger has to eat in sometimes.
Are you sure nothing's bothering you?
It's the money, Ginger. Gone, all of it. Do you know how it feels to have nothing?
Kind of.
It's dreadful. We've been reduced to eating in.
Well, maybe you and your family can look at this trying period as a challenge, an adventure. Something that the four of you will go through together and perhaps come out stronger for at the end. And maybe I should follow my own good advice.
I just wish the writers had done this at the beginning of the season, if they were going to make Courtney lose everything, because that would have made Courtney less one-dimensional. In my opinion, Courtney wasn't even that bad. She was wealthy, she was entitled and annoying because of her environment, but she had no caring dad or mom for support, no warm relationships in her life, and we just saw her time and time again trying to be friends with Ginger and trying to go outside of her comfort zone. So it's why did she need to get consistently bullied in the last season when she was being a better friend overall? It just would have been more meaningful to see some type of growth there, okay? Even if it wasn't, a crush relationship arc because it was 2002, they still could have done just a better friendship plot, in my opinion. So anyways, to wrap this up, Courtney Gripling is gay. We've seen the evidence time and time again. She's had Ginger's face plastered on her shirt. She wanted to soak up every last bit of Ginger when she was gone, okay? So what began as a bit of a social experiment for Courtney quickly developed into a crush. And so all of that to say, Courtney Gripling, she's gay. Courtney Gripling is gay.